See, the interesting thing about Kamala Harris is that, well, the left really just can't figure out why she lost. Now, ultimately, folks, you and I both know she's unlikable. She's not a good person. She doesn't come off as authentic. She stole her primary. So that could possibly be one of the many reasons. But Rasmussen Reports is asking that specific question in regards to why did Kamala Harris lose? And when it comes to talking to voters, well, it's very, very interesting. 45% say that the main reason Harris lost was because the Democratic Party was out of touch with the concerns of most Americans. Yeah, that's pretty relatable, I guess I'd say. 21% believe Harris lost because the Biden administration was unpopular. That also makes sense. Probably should be a little bit higher on that. And 18% think it was because Harris was a bad candidate. And she was a bad candidate, guys. Remember, she didn't make it past her primary. Joining me to discuss is the head poster over at Rasmussen Reports. Mark Mitchell is joining us to discuss. Mark, thanks for jumping on. I know Tim Walz was like floating the idea that Kamala Harris lost because the world is a bunch of sexist lunatics and we're all a bunch of racists. But I mean, none of that makes any sense. There's actual legitimate reasons for why she lost, and it's that she's unlikable. And you've asked all the hard questions. So break down this latest poll.
Yeah, that's funny. That really proves the whole point of these numbers because what they're going to do is go back and come up with all of these fake, stupid reasons that they lost in November, like misogyny. And that's not at all what happened. What happened is Biden's administration was horrible for everybody. And there was probably very little that anybody could have done, including the second coming of Barack Obama, to actually get the Democrats to win. Now, I actually did these numbers because I kind of felt bad for Kamala Harris. They seem to be throwing her under the bus. To be honest with you, she did close the race quite a bit. I don't think where Biden started this thing, she ever had a shot of winning. And then all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh, she's horrible. She's the worst. Yeah, you knew that going in, but she wasn't that much worse than Joe Biden. His presidency sucked. And of course, she was attached to it. But what it comes down to is that the Democrat Party is imploding and needs to redefine itself. And that's why we came up out with those numbers. It's trying to help the Democrat Party get better because if they move to the center, then everybody will be less insane. I really want to avoid a second civil war. So when 45% of all voters say they lost because the Democrat Party was out of touch with the concern of most Americans, it's very plain as day. And it's also Democrat voters that know this. So they're watching Pelosi stab Kamala Harris in the back. They're watching Jill Biden hate the Harris people. But only 8% of Democrats say she lost because she was a bad candidate. 40% of Democrats say it's because the Democrat Party was out of touch with the concerns of most Americans. And that's what's so appalling for them because I look around and I don't see a single thing that any one of them has done to address that very core issue.
Yeah, and I think that's critical here, right? And I should have highlighted the fact that these are Democrats you guys polled specifically because, obviously that's very, very important. But I think a lot of people just were not enjoying the messaging. I mean, what was the messaging? If you like what the last 4 years have been, let's continue this on. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
Most Americans were voting based on their wallets, and I think that's why she lost by a landslide. But I laugh because there's always reports floating around that she's actually considering running for potentially 2028. And you also pulled on that. So 24% of likely U.S. voters believe it would be better off for the Democrats if Harris was the candidate again, which is kind of absurd. But 61% of Democrats say that she probably, or the party itself, should just find another presidential candidate for 2028.
Yeah.
I can't imagine them running Kamala Harris again with a serious face.
Well, it just shows the crisis of leadership they have, the fact that they've really done no bench building. The entire Democrat Party has just been maintaining this centralized power hegemony they have. They haven't been doing any succession planning, let's just say. Now, those were all likely voters, 61% to 24. The Democrat numbers weren't much different. It was 55 to 32. But what it highlights, 55% say they should find another candidate. What it highlights is only 8% of Democrats are willing to say they lost because she was a bad candidate, but only a third of them actually want her to run again. And we've seen other people polling this as well. They gave the whole list of like 10 possible different Democrat candidates, and Kamala Harris wins overwhelmingly above anybody else, 40% to I think the next highest was like in the low teens, Newsom or Whitmer. And so really what it comes down to is they hate the party. They realize it has problems and it is insane. I mean, this isn't, blue sky isn't their core voter. Their core voters are people who just watch cable news, might be blue collar, the ones that the Democrat Party ran from to embrace all of these insane luxury beliefs. So, how is that going to get fixed? They have no idea. Otherwise, you'd see somebody standing out here. And all that means, I think, for like pragmatic politics, is the next couple of years is probably going to be a really nasty knife fight among the Democrats. As I mean, you're already seeing it. You're seeing Pelosi undermine AOC, and has a shot. I mean, she's not great, but you don't have to be great to be another Bernie Sanders. And we all saw what happened there. So it's going to be, I think, another Democrat civil war this time around.
Yeah, and politicians always seem to fail their way up. So AOC is definitely somebody who could potentially be a threat for that position as well. Mark, I want to ask you about another poll in regards to President Joe Biden. I don't call him the president, though. I don't think he's really running the country, but I'm a little biased.
The
Recently
resident,
granted.
yeah.
he recently granted a pardon for his son Hunter, and you asked, do you approve or disapprove of the Biden pardon of his son? And it was a strong disapproval, over 50%, but it breaks down to somewhat disapproval was at 15, strongly disapprove was at 43%. So I think that's really telling here. Now, and I think this is interesting to put in context too, because we're hearing about, potentially he could pardon his family members, the other family members who are involved in a lot of these business dealings as well, plus Dr. Anthony Fauci. So break down this next poll.
Yeah, we have polling on the Anthony Fauci pardon coming out next week. I mean, this is horrible. The optics are bad. Only 19% strongly approve. And this is, I mean, just rewind 4 years to what was going on, where the media was lying to people that the laptop was fake and Russian disinformation. I mean, they just don't like this. I think for me, the biggest takeaway, though, is that we've gotten to a point where very little can affect Biden. Again, he was a horrible president. Everybody says when we ask, is he better or worse than most recent presidents? They say horrible. And when you stack him up against the other presidents too, he rates very poorly. And yet today, his job approval rating is 40 couple percent, and 55-ish% of Americans disapprove of him. And that's about the same number of people who disapprove of this pardon. So there's really nothing he can do to change those numbers. And he's probably going to fizzle out in the mid 40s when, just 20 years ago with George W. Bush coming out of office, his approval rating was 33% at the end. So really, the Democrats have become somebody who just will support whoever's at the top of their party structure, even if he's literally an incompetent vegetable.
Yeah, and we've seen that too. Kamala Harris was unable to even answer simple questions, and yet everyone rallied around her as soon as she was announced to be their next 2024 top of the ticket nominee. So it's disturbing, but it's not surprising. Hopefully hopefully Republicans could unify, because it seems like we can't with our Senate. So we'll see how that all plays out, because it's so enraging, to sit here and see one side be able to just suck it up, not to have any public backlash, and the other side just can't seem to pull it together. Mark Bitch, I want to thank you for joining us today. Again, to our audience, let me remind you, Mark has a great show over at YouTube where he breaks down all of his polling. Head on over there, subscribe. We've got the link in the description of this video. Mark Mitchell, thank you as always. It's time to get creative when it comes to Christmas gifts, and I've got the perfect suggestion for you. I just did this for my friends and family, and you're going to like this because it's American Wagyu. It's a company literally based in Missouri, so it's an American-owned company, and they ship out Wagyu products that are amazing. I myself order from them all the time. I just sent this beautiful New York strip to my producer, Pete. Him and his family are loving it. I've also sent out Denver steak cuts, which are also another incredible one that you're going to want to check out. Now, the best part about all of this, guys, is not only is it an American Wagyu that's delivered to your door, there's also a sale going on right now, but the average folks get the sale price, but you're going to get an additional savings for just listening to today. So when you go over to ozarkwagyu.com, you're going to want to use promo code BRE, that's promo code BRE, to secure an additional savings on all of these great items. I mean, there's literally so much: filet mignon, chuck roast, flat iron steaks, all on sale right now. I got to tell you, on top of that, discounts with that promo code BRE. So head over right now to ozarkwagyu.com, take a look around, and use promo code BRE, that's promo code BRE, to save on top of these great deals. You won't regret it. It's going to make a great gift.